Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to teach you how to use VueJS and PHP to send an SMS using the Twilio API. So basically you would be able to fill this out, type in a message and hit send SMS, and this will automatically connect with Twilio, send the SMS, reset the form and allow you to do it again over and over. Despite this form looking relatively simple, there are quite a few things going on here. Couple of things are that it does have front-end validation, so it won't send the SMS to the server without the fields being filled out. It also has form formatting, so if I type in a valid Australian mobile number, if I just do something like this, you'll notice it automatically formats the number in a nice way. So it puts the spaces here automatically, and it actually doesn't let me type any more than 10 numbers, which is the Australian format. Obviously you can do it in other formats, and I'll show you how to do that. And the last thing is that if a number is invalid, it also checks that on the front end as well. We use a library for that to check, and if it is invalid, it won't allow the sending to the server as well. So if I type in that number, I type test as a message, hit send SMS, you'll see it automatically says the number is not valid. So essentially we want to check everything as much as possible on the front end before we try and even send it to the server. And then the server can do some extra checking to then process and send the SMS. So with that being said, let's get started. In this tutorial, I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code and Laragon as my local server. If you don't know what Laragon is, just visit their website, laragon.org. It's a free download and it works awesome. I'm also obviously using Windows 10. Now with that being said, let's first create our index.html file. And we will just do the plain HTML5 scaffolding and make the title whatever you want, but I'm just going to do send an SMS. And then we want to include some JavaScript and CSS in our project, but instead of just including libraries inside our HTML file, we are going to be using a compiler. We're going to be using Laravel Mix, and that's just a wrapper around Webpack. It allows us to compile our JavaScript and our CSS, and we can also use Sass, and it's relatively simple to install. So if you go to the Laravel Mix website, you'll see there's some installation instructions here. If you don't want to follow along with this video, you can see here I'm going to be following these instructions. So the first thing we want to do is we want to initialize npm. Let's just do npm init and then -y, so we don't have to fill out any of the questions. So that's just going to set up a brand new package.json file. And then we want to do npm install Laravel mix, and then --save -dev, which means that it's not going to be used on the live server. It's just going to be used locally. And basically Laravel mix, once we're going to have essentially two folders. We're going to have a source folder and a dist folder, and we will do all our JavaScript and Sass or CSS inside our source folder, and everything will then compile into our dist folder. And then we include all of the dist files, not the source files. So we'll just wait for this to install. Now it's installed, we need to copy a file from our node modules folder, which we can just do cp node modules Laravel mix setup webpack.mix.js and then // and that's going to copy it into our project. So you can get this off the installation instructions on that Laravel mix website. And then what we want to do is we want to go into our webpack.mix.js, and as you can see, a lot of stuff has been pre-filled for us. But what we want to do is we want to firstly create a source folder. So we'll create source, src, and create another folder called dist. So basically what's going to happen is our app.js in our source folder and our app.scss in our source folder, when it's compiled, they're going to go both into our dist folder. Okay, so we just need to create now an app.js in our source folder and an app.scss in our source folder as well. And then what we want to do is we want to do npm. Actually, before we do that, we want to copy some scripts into our package.json. So we just basically override the scripts here and paste this, and that is located on the Laravel Mix website. So you just need to copy these, and that allows us to set up the production environment or watch whenever we do changes. We can run this and it will automatically check and compile the JS again. So once you hit save, then you can do npm run watch, and this should automatically watch for any changes in the JS or CSS file. As you can see, what's happening is before it allows us to run the watch, it's got to install a couple of other things, and it's doing that automatically. So we'll just wait for that to happen. Okay, that's happened. So now let's do npm run watch again, and let's see what happens. Okay, that looks promising. So what's happened is it's automatically compiled the two files in there, and now in the dist folder we should see the same things. There we go. Okay, so now we want to link these files to our index.html. So for the CSS, we'll do link href equals and then .dist app.css rel equals style sheet, and then just before the closing body tag, script source equals .dist app.js. And we can test if that actually works. We'll just go into, oops, okay, no, we don't want to actually edit the dist files. We want to edit the source files. So we'll go into app.js and we'll do something like alert test. And we'll see if that works. So we'll go to our project, and I will go to this folder because I actually created this before the tutorial started. So we need to go to the video folder. Let's go here, video, cool. Okay, so it's all working. Now what we want to do is go into our app.js file, and we want to install a couple of things. Firstly, we want to install Vue into our project. So let's go and install Vue. I'm just going to cancel out of this watch because we don't need a watch right now. So we have to do npm install Vue, and we'll wait for that to install. Okay, Vue is installed. Then we want something, a library we can use to make HTTP requests. So basically we're going to be making an HTTP request from our Vue application to our server to send the SMS. And we'll use something called Axios. So Axios can be downloaded by just doing npm install Axios, and we'll wait for that to install as well. Awesome, so now we have both Vue and Axios. Let's bring them into our app.js. So we'll do window.vue equals require Vue. And then we'll do window.axios equals require Axios. Okay, so we've got both Vue and Axios in our project. And then let's create our Vue instance. So let's create a constant. We'll just call it app, and we'll open up a new Vue instance. And within there, we want to specify that the element that we're targeting is going to be the app div. So let's go into our index.html and actually create an app div. There we go. So now everything for Vue is going to be contained within that div. Cool. Now what we want to do is we want to create a component. So we're going to create a separate component for the form, and that can easily be done by, let's just create a new folder called components. And inside components, let's create a new file, and we'll call that form.vue. We'll use capital F for that. Then what we can do is we can import that. I'll just put a note here called components, and we'll just do import form from, and then we want to grab it from components. So we're already inside the component, inside the source folder. So it just needs to be like this, components form. Now let's see if this all works. All we have to do is do npm run watch, and we can leave npm run watch going all the time, and this is going to compile the JS. Cool. All right, so it all worked okay. Now let's go into our form.vue and let's set that up so that we can actually start putting something in there. So to do that, let's type in template. This is just the basic scaffolding of a VueJS template, component. And then we'll also do a script tag there, and you'll see that Visual Studio Code automatically does that, which is pretty cool. All right, so now that we have our basic template, within any component in Vue, you need to make sure that you have an inner div. So it just needs to be a blank div there. Otherwise you will run into problems. And I'm just going to turn off my speaker here. Okay, so now that we have the blank component, let's just do a test. We'll type, this is a test. And then we need to obviously create or tell Vue that there is a component that exists called form. And to do that, you just have to do view.component, and we can do a name for the component. So it will just be the tag we're going to use, and we'll just call it SMS form. And then we'll obviously use the component which we imported, which is called form. We'll save that. Let's go to our index.html, and within this app div, let's do SMS form. Cool, so that is automatically going to load this component. And if we've done everything correctly, if I refresh the page, it should actually just say this is a test. So let's give it a go. Beautiful. Okay, so the VueJS component is now loaded in our index.html. All right, so now let's get Bootstrap so we can make it look a bit prettier when we design this form. We'll just go to getbootstrap.com and just use the CSS only. We're not going to be using the JavaScript component of that. And then let's go back to our project and just paste it on top of our app.css. So now we have Bootstrap going. Now let's go into our form.view, which is our component, and let's start designing this form. So we'll open up the form tags, and within our form tags, let's just do send an SMS as a title, and maybe just a message, type a number and message. Then we want to do a form group, which is a Bootstrap class. You don't need to use Bootstrap if you don't want to. This is just to make it look good. And within that form group, we want to do an input type equals text. And we'll do class equals form control. And we'll do a placeholder, which is phone number. We'll copy that and we'll paste it again. And within this form group, we'll do a text area. Let's do text area. I'll clear these out that get automatically generated. Just class form control, and we'll do a placeholder of what will we type? Maybe just your message. And then we'll do one more form group, and this will be the submit button. So we'll just do button type equals submit. And we'll do class equals btn, btn success, btn large, and btn block. And that is, again, Bootstrap styles. And then we'll just do send SMS as the actual text and save it. Let's have a look at our project now and refresh it. You'll see that the form comes up like this. So we need to put it within a container to look half decent. So let's go to our index.html and wrap the container around our component. Cool. Refresh that. All right, still looks okay. We'll give our form a class. So we'll go back in here and we'll do class equals form wrap. And then we can go into our source SAS file or SCSS file and just do a couple of things. So what we'll do is we'll do form wrap, and we'll target the form. We'll do padding 1 rem, border radius 0.5 rem, background white, width. I'll make the width 500 pixels, but then I'll give it a max width of 90% in case it's used on mobiles. We'll do margin 0 auto, which will automatically center the div. And we'll save that. And also I'll just add a body. So we'll do in body, we'll do background E7, 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 which is kind of like a gray. And then let's go and see how she looks now. Okay, so yeah, not too bad. Let's also do a full height of 100% on our body and a full height of 100% on our HTML, because we want to actually, I'm going to actually center this form. And then what we want to do is let's target this ID, app. So let's just go. I'll put form wrap with inside of there. There we go. And then we'll target app and we'll do display flex, which will automatically make everything in the app div display as a flex. Then we can do justify content center, align items center, and height 100%. So we'll display it as flex. We'll tell it that we want everything to be centered from left to right, and then align the item center up to down, and the app div will be 100% as well. So if we're lucky now, it should automatically be centered in the middle. There we go. All right, and the last thing would be just to, I guess, give it a bit of a shadow at the back. So this really isn't a design course, but I wanted to show you this really cool tool, and I'll just find it. It's a shadow generator. So if you just go to brumm.af/shadows, this website will automatically make it so much easier to create shadows for your project. So as you can see, this is the CSS. So that's how the box will look. You can change it with all these settings here. Let's just go back into our project now, and we'll paste that code into there, into our form wrap. So we'll just paste it there. Refresh. Beautiful. Okay, so that is our form designed. Let's dig deeper into it now and set up the functionality to actually send the phone number and the message to our server to send the SMS. Okay, so I'm just going to format this to make it look a bit nicer. There we go. We'll go into our form.view now. I'll close out of everything else. We'll go into our component, and let's set up a couple of things here. So with a component, we can set up some methods, we can set up the data, and we can also set up some computed properties, and we're going to use all of them with Vue.js for this form. The first thing we want to do is we want to add our state, or the initial loading state of our data. So with a component, we have to make it a function, and then we return the data. So within there, let's create an object called SMS. And inside that object, we'll do the phone, and the phone number is going to be null. The initial state when it's loaded, the actual form field will be null for the phone number, and also the message will be null. So that's the initial state. We can now link up the actual inputs to those models. So let's do vModel equals sms.phone, because this is the phone field. And here we'll do vModel equals sms.message. So let's test it out. At the top of our form, let's just put the SMS object there. And if we've done it correctly, when we start filling out the form, we should automatically see this being filled out. So let's type in a number. Yep, as you can see, it's automatically working. Fantastic. Okay, let's go back into our component. And what we want to do is we now want to set up a method. So when someone clicks on the submit button, it should run a method in Vue, and that method should then make an HTTP request to the server to send the SMS. So underneath our data object or function, let's do methods. And in the methods object, let's do a function called send SMS. And in this function, this is what's going to be called when we click on the submit button of the form. So with that being said, let's do @submit.prevent. So basically when this form is submitted, and then to do prevent default. So basically it's not just going to submit the page like a standard HTML document does. It's going to override it. And then it's going to send an SMS using the function called send SMS. So let's test that. If I've done it correctly, when we hit the submit button, it's automatically going to say sent. So let's type this something in, hit send SMS. There we go. So it's working properly. So now that we have the ability to hit the button and the method works, then we want to do a couple of checks before it actually sends the message to the server. So the first one I thought of is that when you send an SMS, you might want to restrict it to 160 characters. You don't want people to be able to type more than that. Really, you can send as many characters you want, and Twilio will automatically send as many SMSs as required to fulfill that message. But in this use case, let's just make it that you can only send 160 characters. Okay, so what would we do? When the person submits the form, it runs the method send SMS and it goes here. So in this method, let's do a check to make sure if it is more than 160 characters. And if it is, then it won't allow the message to be sent. So let's do something like if, and then let's refer to this message. So let's go if this.sms.message is .length, which automatically counts the number of characters in the actual message. If it's more than 160, then let's create an alert. So let's firstly go and create an alert, and we'll make it null right now. Let's do this.alert equals, and I'm going to do status false. So this is a new object, and the message will be, please limit your message to 160 characters. And then we'll return. So we don't want it to go any further from there. Let's go back now and check it out. So I will just type in a lot of characters there and hit send SMS, and nothing's actually happening because what we need to do is we need the alert to come up at the top. So to do that, let's go back in and let's add the alert right here. So we'll do div. Actually, no, what we'll do is we'll do template. Template's like an invisible div. It's just going to allow us to add some if statements in there without actually spitting out these tags. So we'll do template vif alert. So if there is an alert, if it's not null, then div vif, and we'll do alert.status. So if it's true, if the alert status is true, then do something. If the alert status is false, do something else. Okay, so we'll leave that one there for now, and we'll do div v else. And this is the one we want. So we'll do class equals alert danger, and we'll grab the message from that object as well. So basically what's going to happen is the SMS is going to be longer than 160 characters, and then this alert up here will equal this object. And inside our actual component, it's going to check if the alert is not null, which it is not null, but then it's going to check if the status is true. And if it's not true, it's going to then show us the danger class, which is a Bootstrap class. And it's going to also spit out the message. So let's save that and see what happens. So I'll just type a lot of characters there, hit send SMS, and as you can see, please limit your message to 160 characters, and it returns it. So you won't actually be able to send the message. You probably noticed in the start of the video as well that we have a little counter. So I'll show you the finished product. If you start typing, it'll actually tell you how many characters are left. So let's create that function. If we go back into our project, we're going to create something called a computed property. And the computed property is basically going to be constantly running and calculating constantly whenever something changes. So we'll go down here, underneath methods, we'll do computed. And inside there, let's create a function called message length. And then we need to just figure out what we're going to do. So the limit that we want to restrict a message to be will be 160 characters. So let's create a variable called limit, and we'll just give it 160. And then we will do find out what the length is left in our message. So we'll do var length equals, and then we obviously the limit, which is 160, and then we want to find out how long the message is right now, which is this. So this SMS message.length. So 160 minus whatever's been typed equals how much have you got left. Now, if the length of the message that we have left is less than 0, then we'll return 0. Otherwise, we'll return the length of the actual message. So that just stops, this actually just stops it from going into minus. So then once we have that computed property, we can just go underneath our text area here and we can just do message length. So let's save that and try it out. Let's refresh it. And we've got a bit of an error. So what is the error? We'll inspect and we'll go to console and it'll say property length of null. Okay, so why is that happening? Message length, var limit equals limit minus. Okay, so this SMS message. Okay, so all right. So the reason why that's coming up is because message is set to null, so that it can't figure out a length, and it's a bit painful when this kind of error comes up because it's quite hard to debug. But I've picked it up quite simply. All we need to do is just do a div v-if message. Let me just think. We'll just do, okay, we'll do v-if sms.message, which means that it will return true if there is actually any text typed into the actual form field. So let's go back into our project and hit refresh, and there you go, it's working now. So if we start typing, you'll see that it's automatically going to count down, and eventually it's going to go down to 0. And the more we type, it's just going to keep staying as 0. But if we actually took away that if statement, saved it and refreshed, and we did exactly the same thing, watch what will happen. It goes into minus figures. So you don't want that. Cool. All right. So now that we have that counter, let's verify the phone number. So for example, if you are in, I'm just going to use Australia as an example. Phone numbers in Australia are typically something like 0400 000 000. So basically there's 4 numbers, 3 numbers, and 3 numbers. You want people to type it in the correct format, because if people don't type it in the correct format, it's not going to work with Twilio. So we need to try and force them, or at least validate them. Now there is an awesome library we can use to do that in JavaScript, and that library is called libphonenumber-js. So let's go to the website and see how we can install it. libphone.js, and it should be, which one are we going to use? Let's click on this one. And it was, yeah, it's quite up to date. So it was last committed yesterday. So let's go down here. How to install this? Okay, let's just go npm install libphonenumber.js. Go back into the project. Now you can easily just open up another terminal window by going here, right click, and it will automatically paste it. And let's install it. Now that we've installed it, what we can do is we can go into our component and we can import it directly into our component. So we'll do import and then open up our parentheses, pass phone number from string from libphonenumber.js. It's going to bring in a function from the library, which will allow us to check the phone number. And if it's invalid, it will automatically send us back and tell us that we need to change it. Otherwise, it's going to automatically convert it into the right format that Twilio needs it at. Because Twilio actually needs the phone number to be in a plus format, like in an international format. For example, in Australia, +61. So say a number is 0400 000 000. Twilio wants it to be +61 400 000 000. So it's a bit painful if you have to automatically change it, but this will automatically do it on the front end before it even sends it to the server. You can obviously do it on the server as well, but we'll do it this way. Okay, so if you remember the method for sending an SMS, once an SMS is sent, it checks the length, and if the length is more than 160 characters, it returns a message and they can't go any further. If that passes, then we want to check if the actual phone number is valid. So we can set up a constant, and in there we'll just call it phone number. Oops, no equal. Constant phone number equals pass phone phone number from string. So that was the function we brought in from the library. And then we want to tell it the phone number that's being submitted. So the phone number is going to be here. So let's do this.sms.phone, and you specify the country. So the country is, in my case, Australia, but you can see all the things here in Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to do Australia. So that's basically going to check if the number is a valid Australian number. And then we do an if statement. So if the phone number isn't valid, so this function is automatically built in, which checks if it's valid. And I'm saying if it isn't with the exclamation mark, then what we want to do is we want to send an alert back, very similar to how we did the alert before. So let's do this alert equals message, status will be false, and then we'll just put a message saying phone number is not valid. Okay, so let's go and try it now. We'll refresh. Let's just type anything and nothing's happening. So why is that? Let's go to console and see if we're having an error. Yes, we are having an error. Length of null again. All right, so what's the problem here? Okay, and the reason why this isn't working is because we haven't typed anything into our message field. If we go to our methods and we look at send SMS method, straight away it's checking if the message has a length, and it does not because it's set to null, and therefore it's going to spit out an error. So just for this, just for the time being, we'll just put in a message, and let's just put in a number, and we'll hit send SMS. And as you can see, the phone number is not valid, so it's going to spit back an incorrect message or a not valid message. So now that we have set up the functionality to check if messages are under 160 characters, and if they aren't, it's going to stop the script and return an error, as well as checking if the phone number is valid, let's just pretty up this to make it a bit simpler. Let's create another method which we can just pass through, which will do this for us. So let's go and create a new method called send error, which is going to receive a status and a message. And within there, we will basically do exactly what this is doing. And we'll just make the status receive the status and the message receive the message. So then we can just do this.send error false, and then we will put the message there. And we'll do exactly the same thing. So I'll just copy it here and I'll paste this message there. Cool. So let's try that out. Type any number and any message, hit send SMS, beautiful. So now that's out of the way. What does this actually do, this library? What we can do is we can do a console log of this variable, and you'll see what data we can play with if we'd like to. So I'll just type in a real phone number, and I'll type in a test message. We'll go to our console and we'll just wait for it to do something. Go to info, and there we go. We can see a phone number object, and inside there, it gives us the calling code of that number, the national number. And as you can see here, this is what we want to use. So this is the actual perfect format that Twilio likes to receive the number in. So to grab that, what we need to do is we just need to get this. So it will just be phone number dot number. But where are we going to put this to submit it to the server? Well, let's go and create another property, and we'll just call it formatted phone. Now this won't be connected to the form per se, but what will happen is once the form is submitted, it will get filled. So we'll just do this formatted phone equals phone number dot number. So that's automatically going to add that once it is valid. Okay, and then the last thing we want to do before we send it to the server will be to tell Vue that we're actually sending it. So this just allows us to maybe do a loading screen or something like that. So we'll go up here under alert. Let's create a new property called sending, and the base state or the starting state will be false. So obviously the form isn't sending at the start. But then once this method has been validated and everything's working to be able to send it, we'll do this sending equals true. And we can work with that a bit later. I'm not sure what's going on with my indenting. And then the last thing obviously is we want to send this to the server. So before we do that, let's go into our main folder of our project and create a PHP file called sendsms.php. And then we go into our form.view component again, and let's use Axios, which is the HTTP library, to make the request. So we'll do axios.post, and we're going to post it to sendsms.php. And what are we going to post to it? Well, we're just going to post this whole object called SMS. So this.sms. Then when we receive if we receive a response, an approved or an OK response, then let's do something. Otherwise, let's catch the error and display it. So I won't put anything in there yet. Now let's go ahead and create our sendsms.php. So we'll go into our folder, hit new file, call it sendsms.php, and let's then receive the data that is sent, or receive the SMS object that's sent through Axios. So we can do PHP, and then we'll create a variable, we'll just call it body. We'll do equals file underscore get underscore contents, and then we'll do PHP input. So that's going to receive the data the way that Axios sends it. Then what we can do is we can do var dump body, and let's go and refresh the page and type in a number. Hit test, or type test, sorry, and hit send SMS. We'll then go to our network. Actually, I lost it there. We'll hit it again. Go to our network, and we'll see that it has come up as a string. So what we need to do is we need to use JSON decode in PHP to convert it into an actual array. But you'll notice here the formatted phone actually was not done. So why is that? Let's go back into our form.view. And okay, so send SMS is sent. It checks the length. It checks if the phone number is valid. And if it is, then it will automatically put it there. But you'll notice here that we didn't put .sms. So that's what we need to do. Refresh it. Let's try it again. I'll keep the inspector open. I'll just put it on the side. And go to network. I'll type in a number. Click into it. There we go. So you can see the phone number is there, the formatted phone is there, and the message is there. So let's now decode that in our PHP file. Go back to sendsms.php, and we will do form equals JSON decode body. And that's automatically going to grab it and put it into an array format. So while we're here, let's protect this so that people can't just go directly to the page. So right now we could just literally just go send sms.php and the page will load. So let's change that. Let's do if there is no body, then echo cheating, and we'll kill the script. So let's refresh it now. There we go. So now people can't access it directly. It will only be accessible through our script. We also want the response of our PHP file to be in JSON format. So to do that, just underneath the if statement, we can do header, content, type, application, JSON. So that will ensure that the data is sent back in proper format. So let's try it. We will just do an echo of the form. And then we'll go into our project. And let's type in a number. phone number is not valid. Cool. And let's go to our inspector now and look at the network. Hit send SMS. Okay, we're having a bit of an error here. Object of class could not be converted to string. Okay. That just means that I can't just echo out the object. I have to echo out a property. So I could just do, say, formatted phone, and that should send the data back in a JSON format. There we go. We can also do phone. Perfect. And if we look at the console and we go back and we go into our Axios post and we do, say, console log res.data, we'll refresh the page, type in a valid number, and you'll see that it will come up here automatically. Awesome. So once we receive a response, we're just going to basically alert the user if their message has been sent or hasn't been sent. So if we go into our send SMS and we just do echo, and we can create a message. We'll just call it alert equals, and it'll be an array. We'll do status true, and the message, your SMS has been sent. And then we can echo we can do echo JSON encode alert. Now let's try and see if that works. There's an unexpected string. Go back and have a look. Oh, there we go. Yep. So we can't put the semicolon there. Let's try it now. Okay, so we're getting a response true. Your SMS has been sent. We'll go back into our form now, and we will do this alert equals res.data. And if you remember, we did the alerts at the top here. And if the alert status was true, then we can do something. So we're going to do class equals alert success, and do exactly the same thing, alert.message. Let's refresh it all, and I'll close the inspector, and I'll type in a valid phone number. There you go, your SMS has been sent. Okay, so now that we've received the SMS data, we've received the message, and we've also received the phone numbers, let's go ahead and create a custom PHP class which will connect with Twilio, send the SMS, then respond to this PHP file, and then respond back to the user. We're going to be using Composer to install the Twilio library, as well as create our own class for auto loading. So I'm just going to clear my terminal here, and to create a Composer file or a composer.json file, just need to do composer init. And it's going to ask a couple of questions. So let's just fill out the questions. I'll just call it Mr. Digital SMS tutorial, no description. And I'm just going to skip everything by pressing enter. I'm just going to do no, and then no again, and I'll hit yes. And as you'll see now, it's created a composer.json file. Inside there, we need to add a few properties here so we can use something called PSR for auto loading. If you don't know what that is, it just makes it much easier to create classes and not have to include them all manually. It just does it automatically. So underneath the authors, underneath the comma there, we can do, in inverted commas, auto load. And then within there, make sure you don't miss that comma as well. Within there, we want to do PSR-4 and then a colon. And then we want to specify what our namespace will be. So our namespace, I'm just going to call it classes, and then 2 backslashes. Just do 2 backslashes. It's important, otherwise it won't work. And then we want to tell it where our classes are going to be located. So I'm going to create a folder called classes. So we'll just do ./classes, hit save, and let's create our folder called classes. And we want that to be in the main area. We don't want it to be within our folder structure. So classes. Cool. So that's it. Then you just need to do npm run, composer install. And that is going to automatically install Composer. It's going to know that all your classes are going to be in the class folder here. And it's just going to make it much easier to create our own class and integrate it into our project. Okay, so now that Composer is installed, we can go ahead and create a class called, let's call it SMS. So in our classes folder, we'll call it sms.php, and inside there we'll do PHP, and we'll tell it the namespace, which is classes, or actually it's capital C. So if we go to composer.json, it's this, that's our namespace there, namespace classes, and then we'll do class SMS, and that should do it right this minute. What we now want to do is install the Twilio PHP library. So to do that, we can go into our browser and just do a Google for Twilio PHP. Oops, Twilio PHP. And you'll see if we scroll down, there's a GitHub repository for Twilio-PHP. Just need to go into there and we need to install it via Composer by grabbing that and then go into our terminal, paste that in, hit enter, wait for that to install as well. So now that Twilio, the PHP Twilio library is installed, we can include it into our actual class. But before we do that, let's get out of our class and go back to our send sms.php. So what's going to happen? Once it gets submitted to our PHP file, it's going to be checked. And if a body exists, we're going to decode the body into an array. And we're not going to send out an alert anymore because that is going to be done by our class. And then what we're going to do is we're going to JSON encode the response from our class. So our class will create a new class. We'll just call SMS equals new SMS, which is going to instantiate a new instance of our SMS class. And then we're going to return a JSON encoded response that our class responds with. So SMS. And we need to obviously create a function or a method in our class. So let's go to our class and we'll do public function send SMS. And what are we going to receive through there? We're going to receive the phone number and the message. So phone and message. So we'll do here, we'll do send SMS, and we'll do formatted phone, which is the formatted phone number that gets sent through, and form message. Okay, and then let's go back in here and let's just return the phone number. Actually, we'll return the message. So just to sum up what's going on is we're receiving the data from our form. We're checking if nobody is, only our script is accessing this page. It's going to return it with a JSON response. Then we are actually decoding the body that's received from Axios so that it's in an array format. We're then creating a new SMS class, and then we're actually responding back to the browser with a JSON encoded response, which is a response from our actual class, which receives our phone number and our message. So what's going to happen now is it's going to run this function and the message should return. So let's go back and see what happens here. I'm going to open up my inspector. I'm going to type in a valid phone number. And if we go to our network, there is an error here, class SMS not found. Okay, great. So let's go back and include our class, our SMS class, into our PHP file. Let's try it again now. And it is still having some sort of error here. So let's just see what's going on. And another extremely amateurish error that I've made. We need to actually include our auto load file so that our PHP knows to use Composer to auto load our classes. So maybe just under the header here, we can do require once vendor autoload.php. And then we will go back and hit send SMS again. And as you can see, the message is being responded to us. So obviously that's not going to be useful for us, but we know now that connection is working. So we could do something like this. Go back in here and we could return an array of status true and message equals awesome. Your SMS has been sent. And let's see if that actually comes up now. Let's hit send SMS. There you go, it comes up. We could also do false has not been sent. And let's then hit send SMS, and as you can see, it's automatically coming up as well. So now that we know the connection works, what we want to do is go back into our code, and let's just remove that. We'll create a new function called, we'll make it a protected function called response. And the response is going to receive two things, which is the status and the message. And we will then return the status as a status, very similar to what we did in Vue, and the message as message, just to make a simple function for responses. So now that we have asked the class to send the SMS, what do we do now? Well, we have to obviously run the Twilio library. So if we go back to our browser, go to the Twilio PHP file, and you'll see that there's a quick start, and it's just a basic sending of an SMS. So let's copy that and let's paste that into our project in the send SMS function, and remove the PHP file there. Or PHP tag, sorry. Now this wants us to enter in a few details: the SID, the token, then the phone number that it needs to SMS. So the phone number that it needs to SMS will just simply be the phone here. So let's just type in the phone variable that gets received from here. And then it wants a phone number that you're sending it from, and it wants the message. So the message will be here. Now the actual Twilio number, we'll create a variable for that, because that is a number that Twilio gives us, and we have to firstly set up a Twilio account. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go to twilio.com. We'll go to, I'm logged in, I'll just log out. I'm logged out, and now let's sign up to Twilio. And when you sign up, you get free credits to test it. I'll just type in my details. I'll just put in a password. Now they're pretty secure with their passwords. And then I'll hit start your free trial. And what will happen is it will take us to a page, and it will ask us to verify our mobile phone number. Well, firstly, we need to verify our email address. So I'm just going to check my email on the other screen, and I'm going to click to confirm it. And now that I've confirmed it, I've been taken to the Twilio page. So let's now confirm our phone number. And I'm going to then verify that. So what's going to happen is a message is going to be sent to our mobile phone, which we need to type in to verify it. I've received the number, and I'm just going to type it in. And that will automatically set up the account. And the last thing we want to do is, I'll just skip to dashboard here. So we have a trial balance of actually $15, which is awesome. And then we just need to get a trial number. But before that, we can just copy the SID here, put that into our SID there, and then get the token, which is, we can copy, and we'll paste there as well. And then we need to get our phone number. So let's get a trial number, and it will automatically give us this number. We can choose the number. Usually it's going to give you a US number for trial purposes. And we'll just copy that phone number over and paste it into there. And then we can just use that variable here. Cool. Okay, so we've got our ID, our token, our Twilio number. We've also told it that we want to, we've told it the message we want to send, and we've also told it the phone number we want to send it to. So once we do that, we want to respond. So if everything goes well, we want to return a response. So we'll return this function, return this response, and we will do response will be true, and the message will be message sent. But we don't want to just do this, because what if there's an error on Twilio's end? What if there's a problem with the phone number? There's a problem with their server? We can't just do this. So to kind of make it a bit more reliable, we do a try and catch block. So we'll do try, and we'll automatically catch the exception if there's an error. So catch REST exception E, which will put the exception into a variable. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll return a response, but we'll make it false. And we'll then respond with the actual message that the exception is, whatever the exception is that is caught, it will actually respond with that message. Okay, so now that we've pasted all this in, we need to actually include Twilio, the Twilio class, into our class. So to do that, we can just do something like in VS Code, we can import the class, and you'll see that it will actually give us all the options here. So as you can see here, it's a Twilio REST client, and we can then just remove that because it automatically knows to use that. Then down here, we want to import that as well. Cool. So now we have the two classes that we need from Twilio to send the message. All right, so let's save that. Let's go back to our project. Oops. And let's try it out. So when you're using a Twilio trial number, you can only send a message to your own phone number that you have assigned to the account. You need to actually pay for Twilio and get a real number if you want to send it to other mobiles. So in this tutorial, we're just going to be sending it to my mobile, and you'll probably be sending it to yours until you become a premium member. So I'm just going to type in a phone number to send it to, which is my own phone number. And I'll type in a message. I'll hit send SMS. And as you can see, it says message sent. And I should receive an SMS very shortly, which I have. It's prefixed with sent from your Twilio trial account, but it actually comes up with the message which says test. So we have successfully sent a message through Twilio and returned it in the form. Now, what if we made a mistake on Twilio? Let's say change the Twilio phone number and add a 1 to it. And then we go back, I'm going to get out of this, go back and try and send it again. What's going to happen? As you can see, because we did the try catch block, we returned the response of the exception. It's actually going to return what Twilio tells us. So unable to create, the from phone number is not valid. So let's just take it back to the number it was and hit send SMS. And there you go, it works. Okay, now we've taken care of the back end, so we can send the SMS. Now I just want to tweak the front end. Firstly, to set up form validation so that people can't just submit a blank form. Secondly, to format the phone number so that it looks half decent. If you're typing in, say, this number, you want it to come out in that format and not like that. And the third thing would be to show a loading screen if the button is clicked. Okay, so actually one more thing I want to do is when you're typing this, I want it to actually say there's 154 letters left, or characters left. So let's go back into our form component and let's just change this to small, not a div, and we'll just do the message length, characters left. Refresh that, save it, there we go, 148 characters left, blah, blah, blah. All right, now what we want to do is we want to do some validation. Now with Vue, there's a couple of libraries for validation, but I would recommend using something called Vee-Validate. So if we go and do a search for Vee-Validate, go to the Vee-Validate website, makes it really, really simple to kind of validate front-end forms. So to integrate Vee-Validate, let's go back into our form component, and we are going to bring in a couple of libraries, well, not library, one library and a couple of functions. But firstly, we need to install Vee-Validate. To do that, go into terminal and do npm install Vee-Validate and wait for that to install. Now that Vee-Validate is installed, we can go down and bring it into our actual component. So we can do import. Now we need to import two functions, one which is called something called a validation provider, and another one which is called a validation observer. and then we want to import it from Vee-Validate /dist/v-validate.full. And if you want to know where I got that from, I got it from the Vee-Validate website. So now that we've imported it into our actual project, we then want to go into our export object and put in the components property, and inside there we want to tell it to expect that we're going to be using these components. So validation observer and validation provider. Cool. Let's go back up to our form now. We're going to wrap the form in the validation observer component, and we'll close it off as well. Now this basically wraps around the whole form, and it keeps an eye out for all the form fields, and essentially it will only allow the form to be submitted if the form is, all the fields that are required are actually fulfilled. So what we're going to do in this observer, we're going to give it a reference, which you'll know why I do this later, of observer. We'll just call it observer. It's a name, so you can use whatever name you want, but I'm just calling it observer. And then we're going to put in a slot, and this is something that a function that gets passed into the observer, and it's a function called handle submit. What this will allow us to do now is within the form we can use this function from Vee-Validate. Now within the form here, we, instead of doing submit prevent send SMS, we're going to do submit prevent handle submit send SMS. And basically that function is going to run. So when we hit, let's just go back here, when we hit send SMS, it's going to run a function and going to check each field within our form and make sure that if it is required that it has been filled out. Now if all of them match, then it will submit to the send SMS method. If not, it will obviously not work. So let's go now to our individual fields and tell Vee-Validate that we want them to actually be validated. So remember how we brought in the observer? Now we want to bring in the provider. So let's wrap it around each individual input, validation provider, and then close it again. And then within there, we want to do rules equals, and the only rule is required, but you can do a pipe and do email and all that sort of stuff, but we're just going to do required. And we're going to give it a name of phone. And then we want to pass in a slot, and we want to pass in a function that we can then use within this component, wrapping component, called errors. And I'll just save that and just make sure it's giving me an underline here. So I'm just trying to figure out why, but it looks okay to me. So then what we want to do is underneath our input, we can do span errors 0. So it's basically going to spit back the error if an error does exist for that particular form field. We'll do exactly the same thing for the message, wrap it around the text area. And the name will be message, and everything else can remain the same. We'll also bring in the span with the errors, and we'll do that. Cool. So let's go back to our project, refresh it, and let's hit send SMS. And as you can see now, it's not actually going to allow us to send unless these are fulfilled. So if I do that, it still won't work. But then if I do a proper phone number, it's actually saying phone number is not valid because that's not the correct format. Let me just try a real number, hit send SMS, message sent. Beautiful. So now that we have front-end validation, people can't submit to the server without making sure that they've filled out both these fields. Now let's use something called Cleave to be able to format the input fields. So Cleave is just another library. So if we do view Cleave component, if you do a Google for that, you'll see the NPM website there. Click into there and just go to the GitHub homepage for this particular component. You'll see what we need to do. So let's just install it via npm install view Cleave component. Paste it in. Oops, what have I done? I'll just clear it and we'll do this. We'll paste it in and install it. Now that we have installed Cleave into our project, let's import it into our actual project, or sorry, into our component. So we'll do import Cleave from view Cleave component. And then we also want to import the functionality to do the phone numbers for my specific country, which is Australia, but you can use the one for your country, which will be import cleave.js /dist add-ons cleave phone.au.js. And I'm getting this off the Cleave website, so I'm not remembering it off by heart or anything. Okay, so now that we've got that, we then need to go and set up a couple of options for the Cleave field. So we'll just do phone options. We'll say phone is true, so Cleave knows that we're using it for a phone, and the phone region code will be AU for Australia. Cool. Now all we have to do is put the Cleave component inside there. We're going to actually replace the component with our input field here with our Cleave component. So let's just go and open up the Cleave component. And just before we do that, we have to bring Cleave as well. So we'll just do Cleave, which refers to that. So now our view component knows we're using Cleave. So we'll open up Cleave and we'll close Cleave as well. But then we need to put in some arguments in there. The first thing will be type equals tel, so telephone. The V model is going to be the same model as this input. Oops. We'll tell it that the options is relating to this. So let's set that as the options. We'll then give it a class of form control so that it matches Bootstrap. And then we'll do placeholder equals phone number. And we can just remove, all right, we'll just save both of them. We'll keep them both next to each other and we'll refresh. And as you can see, we have two fields, but when I type in one, actually it's not coming up in the other. So let's see why that is. SMS phone, SMS, okay, they both have the same V model associated with them. So let's just try this. So 04, it might not work with both of them working, to be honest. Let's try and see if I remove one of them. And let's refresh and see now. 04, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay, so it doesn't seem to be working. We'll have a look in our console and see if there are any errors. And there don't seem to be any errors. So let's see why that's not working. Okay, so the problem is that I didn't put options. It's supposed to be options, not option. So we'll hit save now and we'll make sure that we're watching. Yeah, it's watching. So let's go and refresh. It's compiled. And let's type in any number. Cool, so it's automatically putting the spaces in there. I'm not typing that, so that's fully formatted. I'll type in a number to send an SMS. Cool. So the last thing we want to do is we want to set up the loader so that, you know, we know that it's actually sending an SMS rather than just waiting for a response. To do that, we'll just use another library called View Loading Overlay. So if we just do View Loading Overlay on Google, and you'll see that come up on NPM. We'll go to the GitHub page. And you'll see to install it, we have to just do npm install View Loading Overlay. Paste that into our terminal. And if we go back to the site, you'll see what we have to do to import it into our component, which is just this. So that's done. And we'll now go and just paste it into here. Save that. And then we can just have a look at the documentation and see what we can do. So we can paste this component into our component. We'll paste it maybe at the top here. And we'll just remove a couple of things. First thing we want to remove is, we want to make is full page true. We'll take out these two. And what we'll also do is take away active.sync. We'll just make it active. And this is what we need to refer to. Earlier, we created a property called sending. And when we are sending, it changes it to true. So we will make this sending. Let's go and try it out. Refresh. Doesn't seem to be working. We'll go into console. Element loading. Did you register it? No, we didn't. So we need to actually go and we need to make sure that we tell Vue that we're using this. So we'll call it, I think it's called loading. Yep. And now let's try it. There we go. But you'll notice that the loading sign still hasn't gone away. To do that, we obviously have to tell the system once it's successful that we want to basically not be loading anymore. So after the response has been made, we can do this.sending equals false. Let's try it again now. Oops. Refresh. Perfect. Okay. One thing you would have noticed is that once I send the SMS, it should clear the form, but it's not doing it right now. So let's quickly make it do that. Let's go back into our component and create a new method. We'll call it reset form. And within there, what we want to do is we want to do this SMS equals, and then we just want to reset these things. So we can just grab them out of there. It's just going to reset the phone, the message, and everything. So it's just going to reset it back to how it started with. We'll refresh the page. Let's try it again. And it still didn't do anything. And that's because in our Axios response, we need to also call this function. So let's do this reset form. Refresh, try it again. There we go. But then what's happened again is that our phone number and our message is coming up with the required field. And that's because Vee-Validate still thinks it exists, but it doesn't. So we need to just tell Vee-Validate to back off and reset itself. To do that, in our response, we can do this .refs.observer. Now, where did I get observer from? Well, I named the validation observer. So that's what we're doing. We're telling it through the refs or the reference in Vue to reset. Cool. Let's refresh, try it again. Done. Okay, so we've successfully set up the form to automatically format itself. We've set up the ability to do front-end validation so people don't send blank forms through. We've also set up the ability to validate the phone number and put it in the correct format to then send to the server and then send via Twilio and send back the appropriate response. The last thing you might want to do is if you want to handle any errors that are caught by Axios when it's trying to send SMS.php, you can do whatever you want. I'll just do alert error.response. And that should alert with an object. Actually, you just do a console log, but you could do whatever you want there. You could make a message pop up, whatever you want. But that brings us to the end of the tutorial, and you can download this off GitHub if you want to muck around with it. And I hope this has brought value and you've learned something. So thank you very much and have a lovely evening or day or whatever, wherever you are in the world. Cheers.